Good morning. My name is Diana McEntee or Diana Sarsfield, depending on what correspondence you see at this time. I was recently married in June to my husband, Sean. So this is just a few little tidbits about my life, our wedding day, our two cats, my students, and my godson over here on his baptism. So when I am not teaching music as a K through 12 teacher in Northern New York, much of my life is dedicated to my family. My husband is one of 11, so we have lots of nieces and nephews and cousins and aunts and uncles. And so I greatly enjoy taking in these children and spoiling them and then giving them back. It's fantastic. So my life as a K through 12 teacher is spent with all ages, all degrees of ability with music. I'm a chorus teacher, so lots and lots and lots of singing, concerts, musicals, caroling around this time of year. It is beautiful, fantastic, crazy, crazy busy. I also am a recent Catholic convert, so when I started teaching 3 years ago, I was still a practicing Protestant, you could say, non-denominational Christian. And about a year in, I converted to Catholicism. So I have been greatly enjoying furthering my education within a more sacred environment, surrounded by Catholics who are seeking the same sorts of things that I am and who are like-minded, and trying to take those lessons that I'm learning and implement them in a secular environment. It is very difficult and confusing, but I think the Lord is working his mysterious ways through my life. And yeah, I don't really know what the future yet will hold for my vocation. There's a cat in real life. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what will come of my degree. I know it is required in my state to get a master's degree, and so I am finding much joy in, again, having a different perspective in education. But we shall see. So my presentation, or my capstone, if this will turn, is titled Building a Visible Catholic Identity Through Love and Action. So some questions that guided my research included: do my daily words and actions reflect my core values and beliefs? How do I build relationships with my students that are Christ-centered? How can I more fully and accurately love my students as Christ loves me? And finally, how can I accomplish the above goals while teaching in the public school sector? And so what I wanted to do was take these readings and insights and wisdom that we have been accumulating over the past few months and apply them into practical applications for daily life. How can we as teachers practically live out these teachings and show our students that we love them? Something that St. John Bosco wrote about was, don't just think love and feel love, but do love, so that our students know that they are loved. But before we get into that and some practical applications, I want to first define Catholic anthropology, the study of where humanity originates in relation to God. It's where we explore what and who is man. So, as Father Kirchner spoke about, we are body and spirit, not just a composition of cells, not just a freely wandering spirit that's untethered to something, but both flesh and spirit joined together to form a creation unlike any other on earth, created by God to esteem towards perfection in his likeness. And this harkens back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, where God said, "And we created man to his own image. To the image of God, he created him, male and female." So how can we go about teaching someone that we don't even understand or value. Before we even walk into the classroom, we need to have that conceptualization of who is man? Why are our students important? Because they're created in the image of God. If we walked into our classrooms and looked at each of our students in the eye and thought, wow, what if this person were Jesus? How would our mindset change? How would our approach to teaching change? Catholic education, I have found, is distinctly different from public education in a lot of ways. But first, it boils down to Catholic anthropology. Catholic education seeks to integrate knowledge in light of our understanding of the human person, as spoken by John Paul II. And as written in Corinthians chapter 2, verse 12, we have received not the spirit of this world, but the spirit that is of God, that we may know the things that are given us from God. Therefore, Christ is not an afterthought to our day. He's not someone we think about after 3:00, but he's someone that we place at the center of all of our activities, from the moment we wake to the moment we go to sleep. And obviously, school is 7-8 hours of our day if we're, going outside the home and practicing it in a traditional sense. Therefore, shouldn't he be at the center of all of everything happening within the school building as well? So therefore, a Catholic school aims for full personal development. We can't just think about our mind and attainment of wisdom and forget about spiritual formation. But backtracking, before we tackle our vocation within the classroom, we need to first take a look at our own hearts and minds and make sure that we are prioritizing our spiritual life. And this can be extremely hard to do. As teachers, I'm speaking from personal experience, we want to give and give and give and give, and we rarely prioritize ourselves. We talk about being bucket fillers in school, and especially with the little ones, and we talk about how we want to fill people's buckets. We don't want to empty them, we want to fill them. But if we're constantly emptying our buckets, we're not going to have anything left to give. So the person that is filling our buckets, it's not necessarily ourselves. We can't fill our own buckets, but it is God who fills our buckets. Cardinal Baum writes that lay Catholics will find support in their own faith. Faith is the unfailing source of the humility, the hope, and the charity needed for perseverance in their vocation. We're going to come back to this thought later on in my capstone. So, teacher, do not let your unique talents be wasted or taken for granted. Every gift has a purpose, and having different gifts according to the grace that is given us, either prophecy to be used according to the rule of faith. So this is a thought that I've had in my mind recently. If we were to compare the interactions and relationships that we are building with our students to the lives of the apostles with Jesus when he was walking on the earth. If we think about how the apostles did life with Jesus, right? They shared meals together. They lived together. They walked together, traveled, taught, learned, laughed, all these things. They lived life together. Aren't we doing that with our students from the moment we enter the school building to the moment we leave, right? We share stories, we share experiences, we share our own personal lives, we share meals. We build these communities together, just like the apostles did with Jesus. After Jesus went to heaven, the apostles built the Catholic Church. They built the Bible together. Our students one day are going to go out into the world and be witnesses of the faith. And what we are doing with our students now contributes to that legacy that they are going to leave, right? Even though we don't get to see it physically, personally, maybe we do, which is awesome if you do, but maybe not. this is generations into the future. We're sharing a piece of that now. Everything we do contributes to the Catholic faith hundreds of years from now. That is powerful. A little terrifying, but so powerful. Cardinal Baum writes that conversation should be a dialogue rather than a monologue. Both parties must practice timely and appropriate listening and clear communication for dialogue to flourish. Conversation is giving and receiving, constant giving and receiving, listening and speaking. And it is so important to model conversation for our students between adults, right? So they can see what that looks like, and also practicing it with our students and correcting them when needed and being corrected, because sometimes I talk too much and they need to remind me that I'm talking too much. So moving on, Christian values generate these human attitudes. And if we're putting on our Christian attitudes from the moment we walk in through the door, then we are generating the attitudes that we want to see in our students. Cardinal Baum writes that teachers should always remember that true education is not limited to the imparting of knowledge. It promotes human dignity and genuine human relationships. Christian values come to naught if they are not actively practiced in daily life. Teachers find opportunities for students to practice virtuous human attitudes and learn from their mistakes. So moving on now to some very straightforward practical applications. Have faith. Sometimes we lose it, but it does not disappear. It is an unfailing source of humility, hope, and charity needed for the perseverance that our job requires. Realize you have a personal vocation above a profession. Teaching is not just a job. It is not just a paycheck. It's not just about who is employing you. It is a vocation that you are hired by God to nurture human souls. And when it comes to nurturing, we are not just creators, but cultivators. I love the analogy of teaching to farming or gardening. How when we put a seed into the ground, we don't just will it with our minds to grow into a plant, but we give it the things it needs in order to grow, right? We give it good soil and sunlight and water. And once it blooms, or once it grows, from the dirt, we don't just ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist, but we continue to give it the things it needs. And as it gets bigger and bigger, it might need different things, right? It might need some pruning, it might need more calcium, or it might need more chlorophyll or something like that. And it needs time. And that's what we do when we teach our students, is that we are recognizing the different things that our students need in order to grow. We can't just look at them and say, learn, do it, take what's inside my mind and understand. No, we give them the tools in order to use what the gifts that they have in order to learn and grow. Moving on, we need to possess a passion for truth that defeats moral and cultural relativism. Your truth and my truth do not exist. Only one singular truth flowing from God directly. There is a time, I believe there's a time and a place and an age to learn about all the things that are happening in this world and the conflicting attitudes that exist. But that time, age, place needs to be discerned very carefully by teachers, administrators, and parents and clergy, all working together to decide how are we going to integrate our students into the world and make sure that they have a solid understanding of one singular truth before they seek to understand what other people may believe, because they need to have that solid foundation first. And finally, do the work for more than money. Yeah, they do work for more than money because we are not going to get compensated for every hour and all of the energy we put into our job. We're not going to get compensated in a monetary fashion, but that compensation are blessings that we do not yet understand or see. And now, St. John Bosco's words of wisdom. I found his writings to be so helpful as an educator, um, because they're just so practical and things that I can do tomorrow in my classroom. So, beginning with love. Love creates confidence between teacher and student. Hearts are opened, needs and weaknesses made known. This love enables superiors to bear with wariness, annoyance, and gratitude the troubles, failings, and neglect of the boys. Written by St. John Bosco. Be conscious of loving students through action. Students don't just walk into our classrooms automatically realizing that we love them. We need to show them these things. So one way that we can show them that we care about them and love them is to share in their youthful interests. St. John Bosco writes, "Let them like what the boys like, and the boys will come to like what the superiors like. This will make the work easy." This is so simple. Listen to your students. I know it's hard if you have many of them like I do to tune into what they are saying and to drop all the other things that are happening inside your mind. But if you can give them those 3 minutes to listen to their stories and to follow up with questions later on throughout the day or the weeks or the year even, you are building a level of trust that nothing else can give you just by listening and following up with those questions. More wisdom. We're a happy spirit of confidence. If you want to see everyone of one heart and one mind again, then for the love of God, you must break down the fatal barrier of distress and put a happy spirit of confidence in its place. I'm going to talk more about the happy spirit in a little bit in the next slide, I think. Create laws or expectations that are enforceable, but will not give rise to bitterness or cause contempt. Something that I've been implementing, especially with my older students, like fourth through sixth grade, is to create a list of expectations together and to pinky promise at the end on these expectations and revisit them throughout the year if you need to. But I love having that dialogue of, okay, what do you expect to happen when you come in? And this is what I expect. And this is why I expect those things. And always follow up with a why of why doing those things might be dangerous or disrespectful or cause contempt within the classroom. So including them in that conversation, again, is creating a dialogue, not just a monologue. So coming back to a happy spirit, it's hard when we're tired, when we're burned out, when we are lacking faith, when we're not filling our buckets, when we're not spending time with the Lord. Happy spirit is hard. When I was thinking about a happy spirit, though, I thought about joy. So here I write that St. John Bosco writes happy, but I think he was referencing joyful, because joy is a deeper quality that permeates the lowest of lows and protects bonds between people. Bitterness and contempt have no chance of forming a branch of trust to a student. Joy, on the other hand, finds the hope in the darkness and clings to what is good. Being joyful does not always look like happy, right? Like coming in smiley, bright-eyed, no bags under your eyes, and positivity and happy bunny rainbows, unicorn fluff, right? We're not always going to be like that. But if we have joy, we realize that after those moments of tired and darkness and those lows that we experience, we know that there is a light to come at the end of the tunnel. We know that God is still walking with us in those dark moments. happiness. We know that He is there as a source of comfort, even though we don't necessarily feel it, right? And that gives us hope. That fosters hope, and that shows our students that we can still try our best and we can still have hope, even if we're not necessarily brimming with happiness. So again, I personally think that St. John Bosco was thinking more of a sense of joy rather than happiness, because happiness is fleeting, but joyfulness walks with us through the darkness. In order to find this spirit of joy, pray. According to Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 15, I will pray with the Spirit. I will pray also with the understanding. I will sing with the Spirit. I will sing also with the understanding. And maybe as a chorus teacher, this resonates with me a little bit more. So when it comes to curriculum in the classroom, I already talked about this a little bit. The truth and the gospel must be protected and defended in the Catholic education curriculum. Archbishop Miller writes that all instruction, therefore, must be authentically Catholic in content and methodology across the entire program of studies. And Pope John Paul II has some advice for keeping the faith alive in the classroom from Veritatis Splendor. Be watchful. Protect human freedom. Be a living remembrance of the commandments. Rely on the gospel. Acknowledge a transcendent truth. And I believe this is live life through the sacraments and something about, sorry, I can't read this. And within communion within the church. This is hard for me to reconcile as a public school teacher, because I simply cannot do, or no, okay, let me rephrase that. I simply cannot say the word Catholic, right? I can't explicitly say, hey guys, this is Catholic. But can I be watchful? Can I be picky about what I teach? Yeah, I totally can. Can I protect human life and value human life? Absolutely. Can I be a living remembrance of the commandments through my actions, by not lying, by not stealing? Absolutely. Can I rely on the gospel? I can, in some ways. I can't be explicit and say, hey guys, this what I'm teaching right now is from 1 Corinthians. No, I can't do that necessarily. But can I do that? Can I live the gospel through action? Yeah, I can. Can I acknowledge that there's a transcendent truth? Again, through action. And what I'm finding is that when I live out these things that we're talking about from St. John Paul, from St. John Bosco, from Archbishop Miller, from Father Kirchner, when I live it out through action, I can do it anywhere, any place, right? Because the words coming out of my mouth are not necessarily, I'm not necessarily quoting scripture, I'm living out scripture. Moving on. Oh, there's more. There is a lot more. And what I'm finding as I work through my degree and teach more and more, there's always more to learn. Anyways, Newman writes on education, teaching the classics and specialization of a specific discipline or a superficial acquaintance with many. And Father Kirchner writes or speaks in his video on a Catholic worldview, don't attribute Catholicism to only one subject, but rather find ways to make all subjects distinctly Catholic. And I love this one. Again, maybe I'm a little biased, but value art, music, and physical education in addition to math and English and history and science. Because when we realize that God speaks through us through all of these subjects, we also find that these subjects work together as well. The learning environment as an extension of a Catholic identity, because this is also important in addition to our actions. So, physical characteristics of the learning environment should be distinctly Catholic, right? Having crucifixes, pictures of the saints, practical changes. These are practical changes in addition to having maybe a quiet area in your classroom dedicated to prayer and meditation. Acknowledging the school as an extension of home. We spend so much time in the school building, so it might as well should be comfortable and pleasant. The Catholic schoolroom fosters a sense of community. We are communal simply by being human and are unhappy when we stray from these communal endeavors. What draws us together should be prioritized and practiced. So therefore, we should seek activities that draw students and their greater community closer, such as charity events, group music making activities, community gardens, dinner fundraisers, movie nights, craft shows, different arts and crafts, painting nights. I could go on, but there are so many ways to hold these types of events as a way to draw people closer and draw people closer to God as well. So being intentional with love, because love or charity is patient, is kind. Charity envieth not, dealeth not perversely, is not puffed up, is not ambitious, seeketh not her own, is not provoked to anger, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth with the truth. From 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 6. Practical love in the classroom is carried out by actions that are intentional, patient, repetitive, and simple. It's not always easy to be these four things and love through action. But again, when we fall short of the glory of God, because we will, we have prayer, we have scripture, and we have the sacraments. And we can always return to those three things. We can always confess, go to confession when we fall short. We can always seek time with the Lord in prayer and meditation when we fall short. As teachers, we need to be mindful that there is no limit to love, but there is a certain expectation of love that we must meet. In summary, children will pick up, as Archbishop Miller wrote, children will pick up far more by the example of their educators than by masterful pedagogical techniques, especially in the practice of Christian virtues. It is not always necessarily what we teach, but how we teach that reflects our core values. And I remind myself of this when I feel like I am not preparing the best, most amazing lesson ever. I remind myself that someday my students will not necessarily remember every single thing I taught them in music, what a quarter note is, what forte means, but they will remember me. They will remember how I spoke to them, how I looked at them, how I dressed, how I walked into the room. Did I smile? Did I laugh? Did I cry with them? They will remember me more than they will remember the content. I hope they will remember the content as well, but anyways, summary in 3 tidbits. Do everything in love, be intentional and prayerful, and don't give up. Here are my references. I will post my capstone presentation for you as well when I post this video if you would like to reference it. I found all of these people and scriptures to be very, very helpful and insightful, as well as other things that we picked up on throughout the semester. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I look forward to listening to yours as well in the coming week. And I hope that you have a very blessed and not so chaotic holiday season and Advent season in the coming weeks, and that you do not forget to prioritize the Lord within these very, very, very busy weeks. It is a struggle of mine in concert seasons and to take that time with the Lord. But anyways, I'm going to end in 20 seconds apparently. So Thank you and God bless.